why you might choose to study at the University of Tasmania, and specifically, of course, why you might choose to study sustainable living. We'll talk about specifically what you will study within the sustainable living course, the career opportunities, what support is available for you as a student at the University of Tasmania, and how this course is paid for, which is quite unique in that it's covered by a 100% HEX scholarship. We'll also be talking you through the application process, and obviously we'll try and leave as much time for questions as possible. I will try and keep an eye on the chat as we go through. So please do pop your questions through that Q&A button down the bottom as we progress through the session. The webinar is also being recorded, and this will be emailed out to you shortly after we do finish the webinar session as well. So very briefly, and you'll be learning a lot more about this through the webinar this afternoon, but the University of Tasmania has very strong sustainability credentials. You can see a whole list of our sustainability accolades listed on the screen there. So I'm not going to list out every particular one, except for the first one, because it's quite important in that we are ranked #1 in climate action globally and have been for many years running now. So when we talk about studying sustainable living at the University of Tasmania, we do understand of what we speak. So that's quite important to know. So to kick off the more comprehensive section of the webinar, I suppose this evening, I will just hand over to Tristan, who teaches into the Diploma of Sustainable Living, who's going to talk us through a little bit about student story to get started. So thanks, Tristan.
Thanks very much, Rhiannon. Look, my name's Tristan Derham. That's not me up on the screen. That's a student who recently graduated from the Diploma of Sustainability. And it's probably worth reading Kelly's story up there on the UTAS website. Kelly Pinner, she's a Tasmanian woman, and she's done lots of different things in her life. She's been a bus driver and a caretaker and a wedding photographer. But during COVID, she said that she found herself falling back on habits that she'd formed as a child growing up in Tasmania, sort of thriftiness around the home and growing her own food, reducing waste around her home. And she enrolled in the DSL and absolutely loved it. And in fact, she went on to study a Bachelor of Science with a sustainability major. So that's the kind of person that might be interested in sustainability and studying the DSL. Just dropped a link into the chat there. I'm also somebody who's really interested in sustainability, learning about it. So is Chris Marbin, who's going to be joining us a little later. He's the unit coordinator for understanding science and also for sustainability, 2 units that are available to you in the diploma. Danny Carney teaches the capstone unit, which you'll do towards the end of your degree. That's called Local Lives for a Sustainable Planet. And Maddie Dobson is the main person in the DSL support team. You have your own student advisors dedicated to your degree. So they'll all be speaking a little bit later on, but I'm going to speak for a minute now. I've been interested in sustainability under its various guises for a long time. Ever since I was a child, I was quite concerned about the ecological crises, the global ecological crisis. There are many species going extinct. There are many ecosystems that are being ravaged and simplified and homogenized. That's happening right here in Australia. Of course, we have something like 2,200 endangered species on our threatened species list, of which about 5%, there's any kind of serious government commitment to doing anything about. So that's a big problem. Where I live in Lutruwita, Tasmania, there are many environmental problems that I'm concerned about. An election issue at the federal level and at the state level is about whether or not we can sustainably farm salmon in Macquarie Harbour when the Maugean skate lives there and only there and is on the brink of extinction. There are lots of sustainability issues here in Tassie around, for example, logging or urban growth or climate. Are our climate emissions sustainable? There are also questions about equity. The current equity crisis, the widening gap between today's have-nots and haves, between today's people and tomorrow's generations that might not be able to live as well. They've always kind of concerned me, and I've always wanted to know more about them and to want to do something about them. So I've done a lot of study. I love to study. I have three undergraduate degrees. I have an engineering degree and a science degree and a philosophy degree and a PhD because I absolutely just love learning and because it helps me become a more effective person in this space. So I guess a big question is why you would want to study sustainability, and you probably have your own ideas, otherwise you wouldn't be here in this seminar. But one of the main reasons is so that you can do something about it. With more knowledge, with better skills to apply that knowledge, with the ability to communicate about sustainability well, to gather people around you and work together, and on your own in your own property, in your own home, you will be a more effective person in this world of sustainability. So we take a really practical approach when we're teaching each of our units. You can develop your own toolkit and you can design your own toolkit depending on which units you choose for improving sustainability in your home, in your community, in your workplace, wherever. All of our units are regularly updated, so we use contemporary case studies and the latest research in our teaching. And one of the most important things about this unit is that the unit coordinators are extremely passionate about sustainability. They really care about what they're teaching, and that makes them fantastic teachers. They not only know their material, but they really care about passing it on to you. Okay, so it's a fully online course. That means the study is self-directed. There are not many occasions when you have to be in a particular place at a particular time to join in an online session. Generally, most of the interactions are asynchronous. You can dip in and do your assignment. You can join a discussion board. You can contribute or read your content, listen to lectures in your own time. Okay, so all the classes are conducted online. You can expect to do between 5 and 10 hours of study every week per unit. So if you're studying full time, if you're working full time, you probably can't study full time as well. So think about one unit is about 5 or 10 hours of study commitment per week. Now it's self-directed, but the units are run at particular times. Most of them are run either in semester one or semester two or both. During the semester, content will be released sequentially, and you'll have assessment tasks that have due dates. And then every unit is assessed, but the methods might vary. You might find yourself, for one unit, writing an assignment, which is an essay. In another one, it's short form answers augmented with photographs from around your house. You might have to build a portfolio. You might have to answer quizzes. You might have to participate in a discussion board. It really depends on the units that you choose. But hopefully you get a real variety of activities and assessments, as well as a variety of content. If you studied full time, here's how it might look. You need to complete 8 units to finish the DSL, the Diploma of Sustainable Living. In your first 4 units, you need to do the core unit, which is communicating sustainability. That's really important. It'll give you a grounding to help you with all of your other units. And during your last 4 units, you need to study the capstone unit, which is called Local Lives for a Sustainable Planet. And Danny Carney's going to speak about that in a minute. Now, if you want to study part-time, you can study 1 unit at a time if you like. You can mix or match to do more in some semesters and less in others. Some of our units are offered over summer, so you can study all the way across the summer, but you have to complete your 8 units within 3 years of beginning the diploma. Okay, here are a few units that are available to you. Some of them have a greater focus on what you can do in your own backyard, in your own home, in your own local community. So the Science of Gardening is a classic. It's a really popular unit. It's one of the units that kind of inspired this degree. And you can get into your own garden. You'll be sent out a soil testing kit and you get your hands dirty and understand what it means to garden sustainably. You might be looking at sustainable design for your own house. If you study the unit that I teach, Living with Fire, then you'll be looking at your own community and your own house, and to some degree nationally and globally as well, but a real focus on the local scale in terms of how you might live in a fire-prone landscape. Some of the units take a big, broad worldview, view of sustainability. Take the big picture view. They study the concepts of sustainability. They look at it from many different angles. One of them run through geology. Humans Earth Shapers looks at the science and the governance and the values that relate to mass extinctions and human impacts on Earth. The unit that Carmel teaches out of the Tasmanian Institute of Agriculture is global food security. Or you might be really interested in climate change or energy. If you want to look at sustainable communities, here are some of the units that might be interesting for you. Living and working with cultural diversity is a practical hands-on unit that helps you get along with and understand and work well with people from different cultures. Or you might look at the politics and the ethics of sustainability with Graham Wood in engaging with sustainability. Lots of different options for you to choose from. So you can kind of choose your own adventure. So now I'd like to introduce to you Chris Marbin. Chris is a senior teaching fellow at University College, and he's going to speak about a couple of units that you might like to study. One of them is sustainability, and the other one is understanding science. So over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Tristan, and hello, everyone. Thanks for coming and listening to this presentation. So there are two units I'll be quickly just running through that we offer out of University College, which is we gladly take the Diploma of Sustainable Living students into the fold. And this first unit isn't actually something that I coordinate. One of my colleagues coordinates it, but she's ill today. But the unit sustainability, it introduces students to the Sustainable Development Goals, but through the lens of the transformations needed to achieve them. So it doesn't ask you just to recite what those Sustainable Development Goals, but it asks you to think about those goals as I suppose in clusters and how you might apply some of the concepts around that into the real world. The unit also covers things around the environmental, social, and economic implications of traditional systems, and it kind of then concludes with the exploration of decoupling digital transformation and circular design, and how that contributes. And then I suppose the main part of this our curriculum really gets you to focus in on yourself and developing yourself and how you can make a difference in contributing to change. Next slide, please, Tristan. Oh, sorry, Rhiannon.
No, you're right. I've just got to find it. Sorry, I lost my place.
So the next unit it'll come up soon, but is a unit that I've coordinated and developed over the last 8 years or so. It evolves a little bit each year. But I suppose what underpins sustainability and decision making in various senses is that you need to have credible information, and science, it really underpins a lot of these decisions. So this is a really good foundation unit to get your science literacy up to speed. We do throw you in the deep end to look at a peer-reviewed journal article, but we hold your hand through the process to get you to kind of understand how science works from that deeper perspective. But also we go back to look at what science is, how it influences society, and how society influences science. But we also do have, with this unit, we do have usually a guest speaker. This year we had Dr. Carl, and the students get to interact with Dr. Carl. Last year we had Anthony Fauci from the United States join us via Zoom, and the students got to develop questions, and part of that is the role of questioning in sort of developing your critical thinking skills as well. Again, this unit is more of a reflecting in on yourself and then reflecting on what you've learned. There's a portfolio component to this unit. So I've just graded all those portfolios for this semester, and I'm always impressed and always sort of blown away by how much people tend to get out of these sort of self-directed units that we've designed. So I think that's all I need to say about those units. Tristan, if anyone has any questions for me, just put them in the chat and I can respond in the chat, or if you'd like to email me, I think those details will probably be provided to you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks very much, Chris. And look, ask Chris a question now, but if there's a unit that you're interested in and you want to discuss it with a unit coordinator, they would love to hear from you. Just send them an email and organize a time to chat, and they'll be happy to talk to you about what's in the unit and what's involved.
Yeah, we
So
love to talk, Tristan.
yeah,
We do love to talk.
yeah, we love a chat.
Thanks.
So our next speaker is Danny Carney. He's an associate lecturer in sustainability, and Danny teaches the capstone unit, which is Local Lives for a Sustainable Planet.
Thanks, Tristan. Yes, I just finished teaching up today. We had our last lecture about 2 hours ago. And it's always a little bit sad. Our unit is the kind of culmination of the DSL for lots of people. So after a year or 2 years of working through all your learning, you come into our unit. And we really work through together as a collective. We usually have around 100 people, 100 students in the class, and we work through bringing all your learning together and the diverse units that each of you put together that shape up your diploma. And we start to think about like, well, how do we make sense of this and what do we do next? But that's very much couched in the idea that a lot of us come to this diploma motivated both a little bit by the things that scare us about what's going wrong in the world, but also a deep love for the places that we are and a desire, an itch to, to be part of the changes we need to see. So everything that we talk about is very much couched in what can we do where we are? And my goal with the people that we teach with, we have a few staff that teach on the unit, is to get to the end of that 13 weeks with you having enough confidence go out to the world and start to have those conversations and to start to put some of these projects into place. I also teach on the Global Food Security Unit, and similar to that, this final unit, Local Lives for a Sustainable Planet, really mimics what might happen in your community. So our assignments are very much about coming together as a group and discussing problems and getting to the core of them. Your primary assignment is usually around designing a project that you might put into place once you finish the diploma, which is really empowering for lots of people. And we really focus, it can be as hyper local as you like, and it really sets you up to do that once you graduate. And then our final assignment is trying to bring all this together in a reflective piece that serves as a tool for you going forward about how your ideas around sustainability change over time. So it's really rewarding to teach. My background is, you're sharing your screen there at the moment.
It's all right. Yep. Moving things around. Yeah.
My background is in social change. So I've done everything from, lock myself onto trees to run political campaigns to running organizations and a whole range of things. So I'm very much interested in social change. And over the 6 years or so that I've taught this, I have found that this is one of the most productive spaces for me personally as a community member that wants to see positive change in the community. The time we spend together as a collective of students is really valuable, and I immediately see the thousands of students that have come out of this and the things that they've gone on to do as one of the most inspiring things. So it's a lot of fun. You learn a lot out of it, and we learn just as much from you. So hopefully as many of you can join us as possible.
Thanks very much, Danny. Much appreciated. So, look, choosing your units is really heaps of fun. You get to basically read about all of these fascinating topics, and you're spoilt for choice. There are about 23, 22 units in the course. 2 of them you have to do, so you have to choose 6 units out of 20. And this is what a study plan might look like. You might do communicating sustainability and living with fire, global food security, and sustainable design in semester 1. And then in semester 2, you might do science of gardening, introducing indigenous life worlds, responding to climate change, and local lives all together in semester 2. But if you're doing part-time study, you can break it up however you like, as long as you do communicating sustainability as one of your first 4 and local lives as one of your last 4. Now, if it's been a while since you studied, if you've never been to university before, if you're getting used to studying at a university level, or if you're getting used to the university systems, you might want to choose one of the less demanding units up front. So for example, if you look at the unit codes, the unit code for the unit I teach is KPZ 104. KPZ 104, that's a level 100 unit. But the code for, let's see, what have we got? Science of gardening is KPZ 001. That means it's a 0 level unit. That means it's like a bridging unit or an introductory unit. So if you haven't studied for a while, I'd suggest you look at some of the zero level units like Science of Gardening, Backyard Biodiversity. Living with Fire is also not desperately challenging if you haven't studied for a long time. So you can always do one of those and then come into something like Communicating Sustainability, which might be more challenging for you. Up to you. I think the best thing to do is really talk to unit coordinators, talk to the DSL support team, and they can help you make your decision about your units. And then also you have to check when the units are being run, because different units are run in different semesters and teaching periods. Now, we want you to succeed at your studies. We're not here to test you or push you down. We want to lift you up. We want all of our students to do really well. And so UTAS has enormous support infrastructure for you in terms of your study, your ability and capacity to study, and also in terms of your personal well-being to make sure that the units and the learning and the university experience is accessible to anybody. So to talk about that, I'd like to introduce Maddie Dobson from the DSL support team. The diploma has its own student support team, and that's headed up by Maddie, and here she is now.
Hello, everyone. Yes, so as Tristan said, I work in the support team for the Diploma of Sustainable Living. It's a really great thing that we've got in this course. It's a bit more unique to other courses. And in that we're there basically to support you to get through the course successfully. As Tristan said, we want you to succeed. We want you to get the most out of it that you can. Essentially, when you're doing your units and you're working through the content, the teaching team's there for you for any kind of academic questions that you might have, and we're there for everything else. So things like deciding on what might best suit you, how many units you might be able to take on at once, getting to know our systems. Milo's our online teaching platform, and if you're not as confident with technology or it's been a while since you've done this kind of thing, then we can help you through all of that. We can also help you with things that might come up for you during the unit that might mean that you're falling behind and that kind of thing. So things like arranging extensions, getting in touch with your various unit coordinators to kind of organise that for you and help you along. Organising things like learning access plans, and other support that you might need to be able to get you through, as well as then any sort of other administrative questions like fees and graduation and things like that.
Okay. How do I move to the next one? There you are. So in terms of career outcomes, because there's such a wide variety of units, you can choose units that will help you in your career. There are lots of places that the degree can take you professionally, whether or not you go on to study a Bachelor of Science with a major in sustainability. I was having this discussion with some students in our Student Hub, which is an online forum for all the DSL students, and we started looking around on LinkedIn to see who had been studying the Diploma of Sustainable Living, what graduates had done, where they'd ended up. And for example, Katrina Panich is a sales and design consultant. There was a Sharka Hornikova, who's a sustainability consultant. There was an architect. There were two writers. There's a climate entrepreneur. So I think basically you can do new things within your existing organizations, or you can take this diploma and put it in your CV and apply for jobs with a heavy sustainability requirement. Okay. I've mentioned the Bachelor of Science a couple of times. So one of the special things about the Diploma of Sustainable Living is that all of the units that we offer are delivered at an introductory level or a 100 level. And so that means if you decide to go on and study a Bachelor of Science with a major in sustainability, every unit that you completed, every unit that you passed for the diploma is credited towards that Bachelor of Science. If you graduate from the diploma, you've basically done the first year of a science degree for free. And you might be able to also get credit for some other undergraduate degrees that offer sustainability as a secondary major, for example, or some degrees where you can use your sustainability DSL units as electives. So I'll hand you back to Maddie once more, who could talk about the fees.
Yes, so as Tristan has said, one of the great things about this course at the moment is that it comes with a full scholarship on the tuition fees for domestic students. So there's a couple of rules around it. Essentially, you have to be a domestic student, eligible for a Commonwealth supported place, and you have to enrol through UTAS directly, so not through open universities. And so at the moment, the scholarship is basically approved year by year, and it has been offered for the last few years, and we've got it for this year. So what that means is that any unit that you enroll in for 2025 will be covered by the full scholarship. So that means there's no tuition fees for you. We don't yet know if we will get the scholarship for 2026. That decision's made around August and September each year, but it has been running for the last few years, so we're hopeful and would expect it to continue, but we can't make any guarantees of that so far. And you know, if it was the case that it didn't continue, there's no obligation for you to keep studying and then have to pay fees or anything like that. When you go through the enrolment process, you will need to fill in what's called an ECAF form. All students at uni have to fill that out, and it essentially is registering to the government that you're a real student. When you get that form and when you first enroll, you will see the fees for your unit. However, that a scholarship will be added to that, so there's nothing that you'll need to pay. The fees team just have to go through and do that manually for everyone. So yeah.
All right. And then I think we're passing back to you, Rhiannon.
Thanks, Tristan. So I'm just going to talk very briefly about the application process. So essentially, our team, the Future Students team at the University of Tasmania, is there to support prospective students right through from ideation stage, the decision-making stage about what to study, all the way through application to enrolment. Applying online through the UTAS website is very, very easy. Literally, when you Google UTAS, there'll be a big old red apply button on the home screen. You can just pop your details in there and start an application. However, if it has been a while since you studied at university or you haven't studied university before, and you would like some assistance, you can certainly make a booking with one of our team and we can assist you over the phone or face-to-face as well at one of the campuses across Tasmania and also in Rozelle in Sydney too. Once you've applied, you will then be emailed if you've received an offer, and you can accept your offer through your original application. Again, as Tristan mentioned, there's a wide variety, of units that you can enroll in. And if you would like some assistance, a member of our team is able to assist you with the enrolment process as well and make sure that you're studying the units you would like to study in a manner and at a time that you would like to study them. So we're very much there to assist you with that. In terms of the application process itself, if you are a Year 12 school leaver, which I would assume a lot of people joining this webinar possibly are not, but I will speak to it very briefly just in case, you would be able to apply under your Australian Tertiary Admissions ranking, so your ATAR at the end of Year 12, which is valid for 2 years after you finish. If it has been a while since you finished high school or your life journey has been varied and diverse as has all of ours, then you will likely need to complete a personal competency statement, which is a written statement outlining your work and personal life experience so that our admissions team can make the most informed judgment about progressing your offers and then hopefully getting through to enrolment as well. So obviously there is a generic link there for applications, but also a really helpful Contact phone number for all inquiries is our UConnect team, which is 138 827. So I will also post that in the chat once I stop presenting at the end as well. So that does bring us to the end of the formal part of the webinar. I have just been trying to keep an eye on the chat as we progress through the slides. Thank you so much, Dougal, for popping in and answering some of those. So we do have a few questions. I'll just jump to Sophia's question first, if that's all right. So is there a prerequisite to the B Science apart from passing all of the units in the DSL?
I don't think there is, but that's a good question for Greg Jordan, who is the course coordinator for the Bachelor of Science. I would double check with Greg Jordan, and I'll just find his email for you and drop it into the chat.
Thank you. And someone else has posted a question. I can't see who it is as they've come up as anonymous. So just to be sure, taking the units will use my 7 EFSL, so equivalent full-time study load, CSP, Commonwealth Supported Place Learning Entitlement. Can you elaborate on that question a little bit?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what that means. Maddie might have some insight.
Yeah.
No, I'm not sure either. I'm not sure, is that a Centrelink type thing or a
Yeah.
yeah.
Commonwealth Supported Position Learning
Yeah, we'd
Entitlement.
have to check with the fees team. I think I've not had that question before, so
Yeah, that's quite a specific
Yeah,
one. We might need to address that offline.
Yeah, so if you have a really specific question like that, the best thing to do is to email Maddie at dsl@utas.edu.au. And then Maddie and her team are happy to run around and find out all that information for you.
Awesome. Another question that's just popped in, is there an application deadline and when does the units commence? I'll speak generically from the future students perspective, and then if anyone from the DSL team wants to jump in, then please feel free. You can apply anytime online. Obviously, certain units will only be offered at certain times. So communicating sustainability, for instance, you need to take that within your first 4 units, I believe, as Tristan said. So you would just need to check on the course page to check when that one does start. But Tristan or Maddie, did you want to jump in with that one?
Yeah, look, I just wanted to point out that these are the unit offerings that are available in 2025. You can see that most of the units fall into semester 1 or semester 2. A couple of units fall outside those periods. Local Lives, for example, starts later in the year. And then you can see that Science of Gardening, Backyard Biodiversity, Living with Fire all have offerings over summer. That might change next year, so don't take this as an indication of what's going to happen next year. But it just gives you a rough idea about how you might break up your studies. And, for example, if you wanted to study the unit Humans Earth Shapers, it's only available in semester 2. And that'll likely be the case next year as well. So you just have to find out unit by unit when they're available, and then work out for yourself how that's going to fit with your own schedule. Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks, Tristan. So I've just got another question from Sierra. Is it straightforward to transition from the undergraduate certificate into the diploma?
yes, very easy. We basically whenever you want in that course, we can do a course transfer form and get you moved into the diploma. So it's very straightforward.
Thank you, Maddie. And another one from Sophie. What are the other undergraduate degrees that these units could be used towards?
So the way that undergraduate degrees work at UTAS is that you have to do some core units, they're non-negotiable. Then you have to do some discipline electives. You have to choose some electives from within the same discipline. If you're studying a Bachelor of Science, you have to do some extra science units, but it doesn't matter what they are as long as you have the right prerequisites. And then on top of that, you get to choose electives from across the university. Now, if you've done some units in the DSL, then some of those units might be credited as electives or discipline electives, but it'll depend on what degree you're doing and what major you're doing.
Thank you. And a question, will you still be offering the undergrad certificate next year? I think, Maddie, you may have touched on this one earlier.
Yes,
sorry,
so far, yes, they'll be going forward, as will the diploma. So
yeah, so the funding for this course is provided at the whim of the federal government, and year to year they tell us whether or not they're going to continue with undergraduate certificates and funding these Commonwealth supported positions as part of the diploma. But they've done it for the last several years. We have no reason to believe that they'll change their policy, but we just have to let students know towards the end of each year.
Awesome. Thank you. I haven't had any more questions pop into the chat as of yet. Oh, sorry. Does a student amenities fee apply to students who only attend online? Approximately how much? Maddie, did you want to answer that one?
yeah, that
Yep.
fee is also covered by the scholarship, so you don't have to pay that.
And generally, student services amenities fee, or SAF fees, as we call them, is about $50 a semester or so. So yeah, that's how much that fee is. Great. So that seems to be all of the questions in the chat so far. Unless anyone has other questions. Is there anything? Oh, sorry, Neil. I'm trying to find the financial summary, and I've looked in the eStudent portal but can't find it. So again, Neil, we can probably take that offline, and Dougal and myself can assist you with finding that information in My Academic for you. Okay. Yeah. I think, in fact, Dougal is responding to you right now. All right, lovely. So again, feel free to keep popping questions in the chat. We do have 19 minutes remaining for this webinar, and this is obviously a fantastic opportunity to speak to experts in the field regarding this course and what it's like to study in this area. I guess out of personal curiosity, because I'm quite interested in studying this area myself. What are some of the practical experiences? So obviously learning online is the main format for the DSL. Is there how are students applying this in their day-to-day, and how might that be sort of used in their learning?
Well, I guess that one of the inspirations for the diploma came from the unit Science of Gardening, which was developed by Rob Wiltshire a few years ago, and he was a master instructor. He's a very, very good educator, and he made it very hands-on. You know, you get a soil testing kit, you test your own soil, you look at the lemon trees in the backyard, and you diagnose the problems based on their leaves and so forth. So really hands-on, roll your sleeves up type stuff. And a few units have taken that model, including the one I teach, Living with Fire. So, for example, the first activity is for you to go out into your local patch of bush and you do a fire fuel assessment using the same method that the fire agencies use to assess fire risk and the difficulty in fighting a fire in that particular place. And in the last assessment task, you look at your own home and you look at different strategies around your own property, things that you can do on your property to reduce the risk. But Danny and Chris, you might want to speak a little bit about the hands-on stuff that goes on in your units.
Yeah, thanks, Tristan. Can I jump in here, Danny? Thank you. Yeah, I think following that same vein, I suppose, given that these units are all online, or the ones that I teach anyway are fully online, we always do ask. So part of the activities we ask the students to perform for just the normal weekly activities, but also the assessment task is to give the students a lot of freedom to bring their own experiences and their own interests into the assessment task or into the activities. And then there is quite a heavy reliance on sharing as well. So students don't just do the work and it's their own work and they keep it to themselves. We have a lot of opportunities for students to share and discuss their findings in an asynchronous manner, as well as in the tutorials. We will bring some of those activities out and discuss them in the context of the learning. And I think also another practical thing that we do, and developing skills in questioning. Questioning is a really important human skill. which I think we lose probably about the age of 8 or 9, where we start to develop shyness and awareness of our social surroundings. I try to encourage that questioning through those sessions with industry and that's my dog asking me where's his food. He's questioning as well.
Oh, now my dog's going crazy.
I think it's about bringing. Yeah, I think we extend the importance of the students bringing their own experiences, their own life experiences, and being able to then use those experiences in a practical way to understand the content and to kind of develop their learning. It's a stronger proposition, I think.
Yeah.
So it's about to get noisy here, so I turn the microphone.
That very much mirrors, Chris, what we do in our units, which is good because there's through all the units, there's particular content, but there's a common thread of really trying to ground what we're learning in the places you live in your life. So I'm lucky because most people do my unit last, and so they've already done Tristan's unit and Chris's unit and all the other fantastic units. So I get to hear about what's in all of them. And so a lot of students say that they get to the beginning of my unit and they've built a beautiful vegetable garden in the backyard based on what they learnt in science of gardening. They've got a really strong understanding of their local ecological environments and can understand the birds that come into their backyards and the different bits of native animal poo that they see walking around, and that all of a sudden they're walking around their community going, oh, well, there's a potteroo here and there's a possum here, and they stay up at night. So they have this really beautiful mapped out understanding of where they live. And then by the end of my unit, we have students who go out and use what we learnt together to set up really interesting projects. So just today I was talking to a student on the phone from first semester last year, whose project was about setting up within her local school community. So where kids go to school, wanted to set up how do you refer to it? Like a bike train, where all the kids in the community meet up in the one spot and ride their bikes to school with a couple of the parents. And that's been going now for about 8 months. So they set up a big project plan about how to get that into place and to make it safe. And they got bike lanes put in, and that was based entirely off what she did within the unit. So that's had enormous ramifications, for her life and for her kids' life and for community, and just how much fun she has doing this kind of stuff. So it's really good. And in similar to what Chris does in their unit, we have 6 workshops through our units, and it's an opportunity for people who can make it voluntarily come to these workshops so we can have those kind of conversations as well. So everything is online and you can go at your own pace, but there are opportunities where we get to have long, deep conversations with each other, which is particularly good if there's people here that have never been to university or it's been a long time. I think roughly 75% of people who jump into the diploma are over the age of 35, and there's an awful lot of people my age and older in their 40s and 50s and 60s going back to uni for the first time. So it's really supportive place to ask questions and to share your experience. So it is very practical in lots of ways.
Thank you. So Tristan, I guess this is probably more of a niche question for you, teaching into the Living with Fire unit. In terms of anyone who's joining the webinar from obviously across Tasmania and particularly in the mainland, in terms of disaster preparedness, is that discussed at all in terms of some of these more specific units and how we might prepare for these more frequent and extreme weather events, including bushfires, obviously, that we're living with at the moment?
Yeah, we certainly cover that in Living with Fire, and there's a whole section on, like one of the big questions for a lot of people when it comes to landscape fire is, should I stay and defend my home, or should I, pack up and go? And so we do a bit of a deep dive into that question and how you might make that decision. We don't make the decision for you. Part of that is dealing with disasters, but not only that, because disasters don't just happen, as a one-off. They have repercussions that go on for months and years afterward. So in Living with Fire, we also do a deep dive into how communities can recover from disasters. And we also look at how communities can become resilient, so that if disaster strikes, they're not rocked quite so hard. And it's something that I think is really important to understand. When a lot of people think about sustainability for the first time, they're thinking about, what can I do? How can I live sustainably? And it's very much me, individual, and that can be a bit debilitating actually. When the reality is you can't do very much on your own, and you have to do everything in and with a community. And that's one of the big lessons that comes through in a lot of the units. That yes, doing things in your backyard is important, but doing things with your community and for your community is also really, really important if you're going to be serious about sustainability.
Awesome, thank you. So there's no more questions that have jumped into the chat other than Jane. Thank you, Jane, saying I'm so happy to geek out with you on a study session. I love this topic. Thanks, Jane. Me too. So if there's, sorry, Sophia's just said, is there an opportunity to also learn from other countries that also have strong sustainable living, i.e. Denmark and the like?
Do you want to speak to that one, Danny?
Yeah, I think you'll find that a lot of the lecturers have, and most units have multiple teaching staff, have lots of experience around the world. So I bring a lot of my experience in Indonesia. I lived there for 7 years. That comes into the class. We have teaching staff in the unit who are born all over the world at the moment. Rana, who's an architect from Egypt, has been sharing a lot about passive design. In warmer climates and things like that. So there is a lot of international examples coming around. And I think the really exciting thing is that you can come through a completely free diploma like this and draw on the expertise of people that you might otherwise have to pay thousands of dollars to get to speak to, people like Tristan, an expert on extinction, and all these other people. So there's a lot of international stuff in there. There's a lot of cutting edge research that is happening. So yeah, it's really fantastic in that regard.
Awesome. Thank you, Danny. Are there any more questions that anyone would like to pop into the chat? Just conscious that we only have 9 minutes left. Nope. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us all today, everyone. Thank you to those of you who are joining from all around the place, as well as those of you who are joining us from beautiful literally to Tasmania as well. So I hope that you found this session beneficial and informative. I certainly have. Please keep an eye on your emails in the coming days, because obviously we have been recording the session today, and you will receive an email with the recorded webinar in it. You'll also receive contact details for the future students engagement team as well, should you wish to get in contact and receive any assistance with the application or enrolment process at all. We are absolutely there to help you with that. So thank you to Tristan and Maddie and all of our presenters today, Danny and Chris. It's just been a wonderful session, and I hope everyone got something out of it.
Oh, thanks very much for organising this, Rhiannon. And again, I'd like to reiterate my thanks to Danny and Chris for joining us, and Maddie. Thank you very much. Thanks, Dougal.
Awesome. Thanks, Dougal. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.